My name is Victor Fuhrman. Some call me the Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me now and we will explore these topics and so much more with fascinating guests, authors, and experts who will guide us to Destination Unlimited. There's a joke that's been circulating recently about a new restaurant called Karma. No menus. You will be served what you deserve. Does karma mean getting our just desserts, or is there more to this? Are there lessons to be learned and life changes to be made, growing in our paths and in our relationships with others, our world, and ourselves? My guest this week on Destination Unlimited, Tracee Dunblazier, says we can heal our karma and the energy we have carried from past lives. Tracee Dunblazier is a Los Angeles-based spiritual empath, shaman, and 20-time national award-winning author. A certified grief counselor and multi-sensitive, Tracee's blend of intuitive information combined with different modalities has provided the opportunity for thousands to achieve deep healing and create the success and peace they seek in their lives. Tracee is president of the Coalition of Visionary Resources, the trade organization for the mind-body-spirit industry, and manages the COVR Visionary Awards program. Her website is TraceeDunblazier.com, and she joins me this week to share her path and book, Conquer Your Karmic Relationships, Heal Spiritual Trauma to Open Your Heart and Restore Your Soul. Please join me in welcoming to Destination Unlimited, Tracee Dunblazier. Welcome, Tracee.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here.
And it's wonderful to have you joining us today. Please share with our listeners your path and how it led to the wonderful gifts you bring to our world.
Wow, that is such... How many hours do you have?
As many as you need.
So I am a grief counselor, spiritual empath, and shaman. I'm mainly a spiritualist is where I started, but in beginning to work professionally, I realized that working with people in the spiritual realms, that a lot of the people I was attracting were people who were needing to grieve, and that grief was very much a part of every aspect of transition. And so that's when it brought me to the focus of becoming a grief counselor specifically, but just wanting to be able to connect with people about grief, and that grief brings us into all of the dimensions of who we are. It helps us to discover more things about us, our karmic relationships, how we align with each other or ourselves. So it's been a long path. I was born psychic and empathic, and there's never been a time that I haven't had those experiences. And I think it wasn't really until I was in my late 20s that I began really coming out of the closet, telling other people about my experiences. And that's what led me to doing this work professionally.
Now, is there a history of this on your family?
As mental illness. Yes, there's everyone in my family is deeply sensitive and have abilities, very, very empathic, but it came for them at a period of time where it wasn't looked at, and there was no ability in the world to nurture it. We don't come from like a spiritual tradition in my family. Most of the people in my family are atheists, so there wasn't any particularly religious connection that would give them a voice about it. So that was my spiritual heritage. I have connections with really many other traditions on a spirit level, which gives me the voice that I have in my family as a spiritualist.
And when you started having these experiences that you remember as a child, did you share those with others?
I did not at all. In fact, it was like an intrinsic response for me, like a knowing that I shouldn't share them. I shouldn't say anything. They're not going to understand. I need to hide that part. That was just what I naturally did. And somehow I knew it was important until I became older and could really own the voice that I come with.
And a question that I ask to folks in your situation, if someone has a child who's demonstrating or manifesting these sensitivities, what would you encourage them to do?
Embrace it. If you work with your own issues about your relationship to that thing, let your child have the thoughts, have the ideas, recognize them as normal, because it is normal. It's normal for all of us to have heightened awareness and even soul memory. And the more they are embraced as they are, the more they can start to gain the personal self-awareness that will help them take that information and use it in their lives.
Absolutely. As I've shared before, when I was growing up, when I was 4 and 5 and 6 years old, I would share things with my parents, and they told me that I was imagining things or had an overactive imagination until confirmations came shortly thereafter. And they recognized that something else was going on. So it's very important to encourage our children who are manifesting these gifts and to help them, and not to tell them it's their imagination, but to encourage them and love them through the process. So thank you for sharing that. Before we discuss Conquer Your Karmic Relationships, please tell us about your earlier national award-winning books. Let's start with Master Your Inner World, Embrace Your Power with Joy.
Well, so that was the first in the series, which the series is the Demon Slayer's Handbook series. And Master Your Inner World really seeks to address the spirit world on all the levels that it exists. I talk about demons, angels, guides, all the different critters, I affectionately call them. There's a lot of critters on the other dimensions that even if a person doesn't deal with those things, or they don't see those things, or it's not a part of their world, I wrote the book to create a common ground between those who actually experience that phenomena and those who don't. Because for the people who experience that phenomena in living color, it is, especially if you're dealing with a demonic world, it's terrifying. It's a powerful, powerful experience that teaches a person how to own their own sense of power. And when you get caught up in the conversation or the debate on whether or not something exists, it just reroutes you to something that really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if, you don't think it exists. If it exists for me, then I need to understand better how to work with it. And so that my book, I really sought to address that common ground, that gray area where people can learn to accept each other as they are and understand how the spirit world works and maybe their subtle or major connections to it.
And what about the Demon Slayer's Handbook, Volume 2?
That is Heal Your Soul History, Activate the True Power of Your Shadow. And that addresses, we all come into life with karmic or spiritual imprints. And those imprints, I relate to them as past lives. Others may not. Whatever their experience is, we come in with leanings, lenses, or viewpoints that help us see the world as through our own eyes. And I wrote it specifically about my relationship of becoming, working through addictive tendencies, working myself out of the karma of darkness, and working with the shadow self, working with my own negativity and personal power in order to transform my viewpoint to something that was usable for me every day.
What are the biggest demons that most people face, and how may they slay them?
Finding their own voice. I think there's a time to lean on the understanding of others, but we first need to know who we are. And oftentimes there are different karmic relationships that we can have with ourself and our self-esteem, our habits, but we first have to find self-acceptance. And so I think the biggest demon, I think that energetically, when someone is fighting any demon, it's going to attack what I call the lowest common denominator, that part of themselves that they haven't reconciled with, where they are vulnerable. So if someone has a unfortunate body image, how they feel about themselves in any direction, if they don't like themselves, the demonic energy is going to attack that. It's going to make fun of that. It's going to embellish and amplify that. And so anytime a person is working with themselves, they have to first accept what's happening and then be willing to have compassion for that thing, have compassion for themselves so that they can then make another choice. They can do the things that are necessary to give them the thing that they're looking for rather than the thing they have. But you can't get there unless you accept what you've got.
And we're going to talk a little bit more about that a little later in the interview. I recently heard a joke about karma. It said there's a new restaurant called Karma, no meals, just desserts. Or a variation says, no menus, you're served what you deserve. Many think of karma in that way, a sort of cosmic payback. Please tell us, what really is karma?
Karma is, it's like when you throw a stone, it's the ripple in the water. It is action, a reaction to an action taken over time and space. And so when you think of life as linear, like I was born this year and then I grow to this age and then I die, that's a linear format. But life is actually spherical. It's wholesome. If there's something that happens to you that you've not worked through and you see that as your past is your present until you work through it. And if you never work through it, it's your future. So karma isn't punishment and reward. Karma is the foresight and the lens that you need to be able to see the choice you make and the impact it will have in the future. It's the energy that helps you to reconcile what that is.
So as we carry these traumas from past lifetimes into new incarnations, how may we address and heal them?
First, to recognize that there's something to address and heal. Grief is the thing that really comes to mind when we talk about healing, because anytime we have an amplified reaction to someone or something happening, it's because we have a spiritual imprint where we have an imprint or another lifetime where we've had an experience that is ungrieved. And that trigger in this life experience is what happens to allow us to process it all out, to grieve the entire story, the entire experience, so that we can become present in this time and place. So people often have, they experience echoes of what they may have experienced before so that they can grieve it. So I think the idea of grief, the idea of, again, self-acceptance and a willingness to honor your real feelings.
A lot of people carry what I refer to as the shoulda, coulda, wouldas. Yes.
Here's the thing with that, Victor. I feel I came into this life. I've spent, I think, many lifetimes as an entertainer, as a singer, as a dancer. And I came into this life really wanting to do that. And everything in my outside world was like, no, you're not that good. You're not going to do that. But I didn't. I took it as a personal affront. Like, what do you mean I can't do that? No one was telling me I can't. It's just that every time I went to a dance class, oftentimes I'd break down in tears, not because of my ability, but because literally I had so much grief that as I began to use my body, that grief would release and I'd have what is known in yoga as a kriya. I'd have this huge emotional release. And I really couldn't be an athlete enough to become a professional dancer. That was just not ever going to happen for me. And when I moved to New York, that was when I was like, okay, this is the thing that I want. And then I realized that's actually not what I want. I don't want that. I wanted what I got from it, which was the release, the relief, the self-acknowledgement and recognition. So I think that we have the imprints that we do to guide us on our path, and we desire the things that we do up until we don't. Like some people will have karma and it will take them with a particular goal in mind. And a day may come when they complete or get what they needed by having that goal. And then the need goes away and something else opens up. And I think we have to learn to be open to the path that we're on, not the one everyone else feels we should have.
Absolutely. You know, it's interesting that in the yogic tradition, you mentioned the Kriya, which is an energy block. Mm-hmm. And in the Jewish tradition, when someone has a funeral and has lost a close relative, there's a custom called Kriya, which is the cutting of a ribbon or clothing, renting of clothing, which is the beginning of the grieving process. It's fascinating, isn't it?
It is. It really is. All of the ancient traditions are all interconnected in terms of the spirit. It really is a map to the spirit world. And then somehow human beings have taken religion and made it something else, made it a business, yeah. And had taken it out of, the spirituality and the connectedness to the way that it is. The spirit world works in a particular way. That doesn't really change.
Yeah.
How we talk about it changes.
Made it, unfortunately, into a form of control.
Absolutely.
Let's look at karma and our relationship with ourselves. So many struggle with their relationship, for example, with food. How may this be turned around? Well,
again, the beginning of any healing cycle is to accept where you're at in the moment. So a person in their relationship with food, food is the way, food is currency. Food is the way we literally survive. We cannot live, we can actually live for quite some time without it. But food has become our emotional currency. It's become the way we love ourselves and each other. And so until one is able to drill down more deeply into what they are seeking to control in their relationship with food, is it love? Is it money? Is it resources? Is it survival? Like literally just staying alive? What is the attachment they have to food other than nutrition? And I think everybody has some form of a relationship with food other than nutrition. And so when you can trust your instinct, be honest about your habits. What are you attracted to? What and why? What are the times of day that you like to eat? When you're able to ask yourself, like stop judging yourself for what you do or the fact that you might have an eating issue, but say, you know what, everything that I'm doing is exactly perfect for me. So what is it I'm doing? Why am I doing it? And once you make that recognition, that cord that is cut in that moment, that allows the grief process to help you transform that behavior into another behavior. So our karma are our spiritual imprints or the memories of other lifetimes that we've been given to guide us on what we are seeking to learn today in this body. And we can use food, sex, money, religion, relationships, cultural relationships, politics. Everybody's got a relationship to all of those things that you're not supposed to talk about at cocktail parties.
Yeah.
Like all those topics, because those are the ones that trigger people the most, and it's those things that we have to look more deeply at. Why we have the belief systems and the ideals that we do.
I come from a family in which food was the gift of love, where my grandmother was well into her late 80s and early 90s, insisted on cooking for everyone who came to her home. And when I was a little boy, she would see me, and she was much older. My dad was much older than my mom. So my grandmother was well into her 70s and 80s when I was a little boy.
Wow.
And I'd come to visit her, and she'd be wearing an apron, And she'd say, you know where it is. And she was talking about the chocolate bar that she had in the pocket of her apron waiting for me. And
Oh,
for her, that was her way of expressing love. And it programmed in my young self, and getting
yes.
back to probably in past lifetimes, this concept of equating love with food. And
Yes.
had issues throughout my life and finally took control of it in my 50s, which probably saved my life. But this whole concept of eating, this encouragement of emotional eating, because the eating takes away the pain.
Absolutely. And everybody who's an overeater, they know that eating doesn't take away the pain. It just creates more chaos and another thing that may distract you from that pain for a while until it doesn't anymore.
Food is the drug that's legal, unfortunately.
Exactly.
My guest is Tracee Dunblazier. Her book, Conquer Your Karmic Relationships, Heal Spiritual Trauma to Open Your Heart and Restore Your Soul. Tracee, please tell our listeners where they can find out more about you and your books.
My website is TraceeDunblazier.com. My name is Tracee Dunblazier, DUNBLAZIER.com. You can find my books anywhere books are sold. And you can also go to beaslayer.com. That's my publishing website where you can see everything that my company offers.
I love that. beaslayer.com. That's wonderful.
Yes.
And we'll be back with more of Tracee after these words on the OMTimes Radio Network.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Imagine yourself being transported to India, to the banks of the Ganga and an ashram in Rishikesh. Visualize that you are welcome to satsang with an American sannyasi who shares the wisdom of her guru. Your visualization has manifested. Join Sattvi Bhagawati Saraswati for inspiration and transformation every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from New Thought teachers, speakers, and researchers, pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
What I know about courage, I learned from my adoptive mom. She said sometimes you just gotta hold on and know we'll get through this. Mom, we are so high up. Hold my hand.
No, you hold my hand.
Here we go.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more. This message is brought to you by Adopt U.S. Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest this week is Tracee Dunblazier. We're talking about her book, Conquer Your Karmic Relationships, Heal Spiritual Trauma to Open Your Heart and Restore Your Soul. So we're talking about relationships. What's at work with those who hoard and have homes so filled that the average person would suffer claustrophobia?
I happen to know quite a few hoarders. for one part of my life, I was a manager of a 40-unit complex here in Los Angeles, and we had a couple of hoarders. It was phenomenal. But when people hoard, things are currency, like money and like food. Things are currency, and people like food when they are overbuying, oversharing. They want to make sure they have enough for the future, to the point at which there are barely paths of egress in and out of their homes. It makes them feel safe. It fills that empty space around them so that they feel grounded and comfortable. So when you're dealing with a hoarder, it's really not about the stuff. Like as an outside person, you can look and go, wow, you have way too much stuff. And here, let me just help you get rid of it. But that never works. The person has got to find a way to feel comfortable and confident in space, to have space around them, to feel vulnerable, right? Those are all the things that are the underlying issues around hoarding.
Almost like building a fortress around yourself.
Exactly. Like I have a client who has a gift room. And that's like we've worked with her enough where her whole house she used to have newspapers in every room in her house. And now it's been 2 decades, and now she has a gift room, right? So she's got one room that is allowed to be junky and overfilled. And we still talk about it. We still work on it. It's a process to work through over time. It's not something that goes, like I said, it doesn't go away overnight, and it's not fixed by cleaning. A lot of people think it's a cleaning issue, or a lack of organization, or a lack of resources. It's none of those things. A person has to build their own sense of self-esteem and comfortability with being by themselves and confident in that. I said being empty, if you will.
Absolutely. I had mentioned claustrophobia and the karmic connection for those who feel uncomfortable or even freak out in enclosed areas. What is that?
Well, it can be many things. I actually worked with a client who in another lifetime had been buried alive. Oh. I know. And it was one of those things where they had it was in a culture where they practiced magic, and they used I can't think of the name of the drug, but it's one of those drugs that it makes you feel like you are, it makes everybody think that you're dead, but you're not, you're still breathing. And the trigger for her was an enclosed space. She could barely tolerate that. She worked with that, but it was a cricket. A cricket one night made her lose her mind because it brought back the flooding memory of that lack of control and the inability to change the situation as it existed. So when people have claustrophobia or other phobias in that way, there is one thing about working through the behavior of it, but to first look at the spiritual element and go back in the time and space into the place in the body where they may be holding a memory and accessing that memory. You can do it through active imagination, through active journaling. There's a lot of ways you can work with somebody like me. There's a lot of ways that you can access what that energy is, that information is, but always starting with this, healing it on the spiritual level, going into that place, visualizing it different. Like in that case, we facilitated that young woman's healing by having her go back into that grave. Imagine being back in that grave, back in that space, waking up, realizing what was happening. And then in the visualization, we saw her break out, like literally dig up 4 feet up and dig her way out and see herself out of that space. And that was the thing that freed her from that sense of healing. When you heal yourself energetically in your imagination, in your mind, when you make that shift, it allowed for her current self to grieve the lack of control she experienced in that life, like the inability to heal it at that time, but she could heal it now. She could become free now. And that once that happened, it made it clear to her the behaviors that she had taken on. She was also a consumer. She'd buy a lot of stuff. She'd eat a lot of stuff. She liked food. She wasn't overweight, but when she ate, she couldn't just she couldn't just take a sip of something. She would, have a shake and she'd suck the whole thing down in one swoop. You know what I mean? So like it was her relationship to things that gave her that sense of confidence. So once she had that original trauma taken care of, it allowed her to see more clearly, oh, I don't need that behavior anymore. I don't need this behavior anymore. No, I don't need that behavior either. It made it clear for her what the proper order of illumination was for her in healing.
What about our relationship with money and how some have what manifests as poverty consciousness?
Well, it's interesting. I actually I had a fabulous conversation about this just a couple of days ago with a client who she has never gone without in this lifetime. She's fairly wealthy now. She's never gone without all through her years, but she had this enormous poverty consciousness. She saw herself the lifetime that it went down, that it drew back to, was being an impoverished Irish orphan in Europe 400 years ago, and how there was just never enough to eat. There was never enough of anything. And then she eventually got sick and died as a condition of that experience. And when we relate our relationship to money, like that was hers, but oftentimes money relates to survival, relates to control. And so those are all the areas that we have to look at when we see ourselves as impoverished or not having enough. Oftentimes people have poverty consciousness because they do not want, oftentimes they've been wealthy in other lifetimes. People think that having money is better than not having money, and it's not. The more you have, the bigger problems you get. Your goal is to be healthy with whatever money you have. When you are healthy with the money you have, meaning you spend within your means, you do well for yourself and others with the money that you have, it makes you confident to have more. Like you'll be able to manage more if you can manage the less that you had. So money is about how you handle it more so than your ability to get it or not get it.
And what about those who are not open to receiving, who just don't feel that they're worthy of receiving?
Worthiness is one of my favorite topics, because worthiness in a spiritual sense is less about what you deserve or don't deserve. Worthiness is about having a 40-ounce pitcher and 80 ounce glasses to pour into the 40-ounce pitcher, right? It's about the space that you have to contain what it is that you want. And we can always, through our habits, through our belief systems, we can always change the amount that we can have. So if you have limitations on your worthiness, what you're able to process, what you're able to manage, if you can get good and concise on the level that you're at, you can always expand your ideas that will attract new opportunities to make you more worthy. We can always become more worthy of anything.
And as Aristotle said, nature abhors a vacuum. Make that space and it will be filled.
Yes, absolutely. And again, being prepared for that space. People want to be a millionaire, but most people who are, they're $100 heirs, and then they win $1 million, they go out and they spend all that money within 6 months, and then they have less because they have overextended themselves. So being good with the money that you make now gives you the space to manage more and more and more as it comes.
I know personally that self-love and self-esteem are major issues for many. One of my personal lessons in this lifetime, and probably from past ones, was emotional wiring that said you are loved when you do things for others. This set a path of taking care of everyone else and people-pleasing, neglecting myself, that lasted until my late 50s when I learned to set boundaries and say no. Many experience something similar. What would you offer them?
That is, Victor, that is the biggest thing. I think that self-love is less about the emotional love that we consider. Like, oh, you're so great, you're so pretty, you're so good. It's not really the emotional platitudes of love. It is your ability to listen to yourself and what you need, honor it, and have compassion for yourself and others. The most important thing that you can do as an act of self-love is really listen to yourself and to others. When you really listen to what someone else is saying, like you hear with your heart, you are more able to see the truth of the situation, which would allow you to make a better decision about whether or not you want to interact with them, or the parameters within the ways that you can interact with them. Right? So self-love and self-care isn't about ignoring others. Self-care is about listening so much to yourself first in terms of your needs. And then secondly, listen to what people are really saying. People will always tell you exactly who they are. And usually they say it in a self-deprecating comment or just as an underlying thing. You'll see it in their mannerisms and behavior. And if you are so comfortable with yourself that you're able to be witness to somebody as they are, you can see those things and then make adjustments. You can set boundaries or not participate at all. So self-love has more to do with accepting yourself as you are and really being patient, like letting yourself just sit with the way things are.
When I was going through my process of learning that self-love and healing that, and the necessity of creating loving but healthy boundaries, I came up with a poem called The Healing Power of No. May I share that with you?
Oh, I would love to hear it.
A time comes for choosing rather than losing the essence that makes us so. And in the bestowing, there's power in knowing the freedom that comes with no. When said with compassion, not angry in fashion, and letting the self-love flow, there's a sense of renewing and deep soul imbuing the awareness that comes with no. So with gentle voice and the power of choice and the courage to make it so, I'm still here, my friends. There's no means in this end, just the healing that comes with no.
I love that so much. That is fantastic.
Thank you. And it took me a long time to learn that lesson. So I understand. Let's talk a little bit. We're going to talk more about this in the next segment. But what is the relationship between karma and romantic relationships?
Well, usually when people are in a karmic space or condition, they're usually deeply sensitive or empathetic. And so they're open in the second chakra. And the second chakra, not only does it govern their emotions, it governs sexuality. And so when you are ultra open emotionally, you unconsciously are going to naturally connect with people on sexual vibrations. And when that happens, there is a sense of deep love, immediate attraction, ultra excitement. And when all of those things happen, people take that as a message that, hey, we should be together, when that's not necessarily the message. Oftentimes when we have that kind of sexuality or sexual connection with people, it's because we also align with them emotionally. And most people are ultra open on an emotional level when they are in pain for some reason. So oftentimes when those kinds of connection happens, it is people trauma bonding, if you will, with one another. They're recognizing each other's pain, but misrecognizing it as an authentic sexual connection or romantic connection. So the most important thing, it's not about not having sex or not dating, not connecting, not recognizing what brings two people together, but it's more being honest with yourself and giving that relationship time to evolve and not put expectations on however you conduct yourself in the relationship, not putting expectations on it. And really being willing to, we all have patterns, and those patterns connect us emotionally. And so when we meet a partner that we're incredibly connected to, they have patterns that match ours, and they may not be patterns we want to continue with. So meeting that person gives us a fantastic opportunity to see ourselves, to see what we like about ourselves, to see what we don't like about ourselves, to see those patterns from a witness perspective or a objective perspective. And then once we've done that, sometimes the relationship ceases to be. There's no more need for it. The most interesting thing to me about positive, good, enduring relationships is that ultimately those couples, they come together and there's a point in time where they choose. And I like this about your poem. You mentioned the word choice multiple times, is that they choose to be together despite their connection.
We're going to pick up on that in the next segment. We're going to talk about soulmates. My guest, Tracee Dunblazier, her book, Conquer Your Karmic Relationships, Heal Spiritual Trauma to Open Your Heart and Restore Your Soul. We'll be back with more of Tracee after these words on the OMTimes Radio Network.
Humanity Healing International is a small nonprofit with a big dream. Since 2007, HHI has been working tirelessly to bring help to communities with little or no hope. Our projects are not broad mandates, nor are they overnight solutions, but they bring the reassurance that no one is alone and that someone cares. To learn more, please visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free, ascendinghearts.com.
So I'm a cat, and I just moved in with this new human, and she's got this little toy she's always playing with, all day long. Tap, 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 bloop, bloop. She can't put it down. There it is. Oh, and get this. She even talks to it. Last week, she asked it for Chinese, and guess what? Egg rolls showed up. Like magic. Humans have cool toys.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
More than 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder, and that number continues to grow. I'm Sharon Saylor, and I'm one of those 24 million. To put that number in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. That's why I've brought together top experts and those thriving regardless of their diagnosis to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information. Join me, Sharon Saylor, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio to find out how to live your life uninterrupted.
Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest this week, Tracee Dunblazier. We're talking about her book, Conquer Your Karmic Relationships, Heal Spiritual Trauma to Open Your Heart and Restore Your Soul. So in the last segment, we were talking about romantic relationships, and this leads to the question, are soulmates real? And if so, why are apparent soulmate relationships so challenging for even seemingly perfect couples?
That's a great question, Victor. Soulmates are absolutely real with an understanding. Soulmates means that each person, soulmates really isn't just about, we were together in another lifetime and we want to be together forever. It's not so much about that. It's that each person comes with a set of patterns and certain things that they need to fulfill in order to embrace, expand, or shift and diminish certain patterns in their spiritual self. And what creates a soulmate relationship is those patterns drawing each other into into the vortex of the two people coming together to witness their pattern on another person, or to witness unconscious things that they do that they don't see. They see them on the other person. And so when people are drawn together with this really intense love, passion, fire, sexuality, emotionalism, when they're drawn together, oftentimes once they've worked through and recognized whatever that pattern is, usually the relationship dries up. They no longer are interested in participating in the relationship. What creates a good, solid, a real, like a good, real soulmate is the point at which people choose each other beyond the passion, beyond the pattern. When they say, you know what, I like who this person is. We have these kinds of things together, and that's enough to sustain me for as long as I want. Right. And that their values are the same, and they've negotiated a relationship that they want to continue choosing each other in. So soulmate relationships are the centrifugal force of the patterns bringing them together, working them through. And then at that point, then they can actually choose to be in a relationship once they've worked through whatever the patterns that brought them together defined.
So soulmate relationships are akin to what we would call postgraduate relationships?
Yes. It's where what we most need is what is drawn to us at any given time. You know, for about 10 years, I attracted the same type of man over and over and over again. Like he had multiple different faces, but he was always the same guy. And I was always at peace with that because I understood that it was really my karma was talking. And these relationships that I was in were bridges to help me heal and to help them heal. But I also had a deeper understanding that although I wanted a enduring long-term relationship, it really wasn't going to be any of these people because that wasn't really appropriate for what we came together to do. And my friends would always say, you know, you have to stop choosing these people. And I'm like, no, that's my karma. I need to choose these people right now because this is what I'm doing. And I'm sorry, it's uncomfortable for you to witness. And by all means, I won't talk with you about it if that makes you uncomfortable. But I don't feel bad about what's happening here. And I know it's short term. Right. So I think that the most important, like we have this illusion of what a good relationship looks like. And that always leads to marriage or some sort of, forever and ever union. But we choose platonic relationships, sexual relationships, compassionate spiritual relationships. We choose relationships with people all the time based on our needs. And we do ourselves the disservice of pretending it's not that way. Because until you can fully get your needs met and understand yourself on such a deep level that you can truly negotiate your values and a relationship that suits both partners at another time, you have to really know yourself well to be able to do that. So until that time comes, embrace where you are, honor what you attract, honor that thing within yourself, find a way to embrace and have patience and accept that self-loathing, whatever it is, accept it. Find love. That's, we were talking about self-love earlier. That's type of radical acceptance is the self-love that we all need right now.
And we have to find that love within ourselves before we can find it with someone else.
Absolutely.
The last few years have brought greater division between peoples, nations, and even our relationship with Mother Earth. Let's look at these individually. First of all, what is the karma that is playing out in the United States right now in terms of racial divides and bigotry and this horrendous replacement movement and the inability of our elected officials to find common ground?
Well, I think that's that's such a big topic, but starting out with our elected officials, our elected officials can only represent our combined lowest common denominator. Our elected officials are the median ground of what we will allow to have authority and become leaders in our society. People that would make great leaders and truly have the ability to take everyone's well-being into account, we won't ever let those people be our government. We're not ready for that, right? So So my advice for people is do the work in yourself. Find that place in yourself. Right now, our racial divide on the planet, but especially in our country, it's always been there. And it really is the predominantly white demographic that didn't know it, because the ones who were believing they were deeply superior and white supremacists, those people were hiding because we had made it inappropriate, right? I mean, of course it's inappropriate, but we weren't saying it's wrong and you can't do that. We were saying, be whatever way you want, just don't show it, right? And so now there is no more time for not being fully what you are. Because when everyone can see what you are, where you're at, and when I say what you are, I mean, I see terrorism as a condition. I don't see it as who the person is. I see that they are connected to this illusion, this mass illusion that we are all not the same thing, right? We are all one human race. No matter how you slice it, no matter how you want to make it something else, that is the spiritual truth. We are all one race. We haven't even gotten to deal with other species out in our galaxy because we can't even accept ourselves.
Absolutely.
Right. So I think that, now is not the time to judge people for being racist. Now is the time to say, okay, why are you racist? And is that still true for you? What does that mean for you? Where did that come from? Why do you feel that way? White people in our country haven't ever had to do that because they want to make it about the emotionalism of Black and brown people, or the recidivism, or the criminal element, or the penal. We put all of these stereotypes on Black and brown people, and then we don't recognize the system that we have been. What's the word I want? We've been king. We've been king of the system. The white people have created a system that Black and brown people are struggling to work within, and we don't even know it. And that's it. It's always been that way. But for the first time, we're starting to be willing to talk about it. People are writing books about it. We're willing to have conversations about it. We are willing to say, gosh, it's not really a Black and brown problem. It's a white problem. If you have to be honest about your social bias, whatever it might be. It's because I'm using race a lot in this conversation, but it's in gender understanding, sexual orientation. There's a lot of things that are shifting because we are connecting to a higher frequency of spiritual acknowledgement of what it means to be male, what it means to be female, and the integration of each human being's masculine and feminine self, right? So there are all of these new understandings.
These few items we've been discussing really come down to our ability to express, and for some to learn, empathy, compassion, and ultimately love. How may we find the way?
Patience, self-acknowledgement. Look, there's this whole illusion that there aren't enough jobs, or this guy is taking the job away from this guy. If anybody who wants work can have work, if you are a person who wants work, let go of other people's opinions and sit down and ask Great Spirit to help you find the work that you need in your life. The more we begin to pull away from the systems that we are working within and change ourselves in them, find the comfort, find the safety in our own relationship with the Great Spirit, as we are willing to do that, or our higher self, or whatever you want to call it, the more we align with our highest self, we're going to be able to fix those things in our life that allows us to feel stable enough to do everything that you just said. Have compassion, have empathy, and make a difference.
You know, in business, I would teach about taking ownership of customer satisfaction, both externally and internally. I would close by saying that if you remove the letters N and R from ownership, you have one ship, the one we are all sailing on, and we sail or sink together. It's time to right the ship, isn't it?
It is. And you know what? We are. This is what righting the ship looks like. This is it. And we are making amazing flash progress.
So may it be. So may it be. My guest is Tracee Dunblazier. Her book, Conquer Your Karmic Relationships, Heal Spiritual Trauma to Open Your Heart and Restore Your Soul. Tracee, one more time, please tell our listeners where they can find your books and all about you.
You can find my books, the Demon Slayer's Handbook series and the Rainbow Warriors Activation Deck. You can find them anywhere books are sold. And you can find me at TraceeDunblazier.com. That's Tracee with 2 E's, Dunblazier.com.
Tracee, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your experience and your wisdom.
Thank you for having me, Victor. I really have had a great time.
And thank you for joining us on Destination Unlimited. I'm Victor, the Voice Fuhrman. Have a wonderful week.